just sitting around reading about Kenneth Copeland, a televangelist who cursed the coronavirus, spit at it during a sermon, and claimed to blow the whole virus away with the wind of God. Eh, maybe it worked. I don't know. Regardless of whether that works or not, we do have to talk about your final project. Yes, the final Sacred Space presentation project. A little bit of a backstory first before we talk about what to worry about. In the before time, the Sacred Space presentation was the bookend project for our semester. It paralleled the Ritual project, but with a couple of meaningful differences. In the Ritual project, you and a team, for better or worse, picked a ritual from a living world religious tradition that was not Catholicism or Islam, and turned to Belk Library, searched App Search for sources relevant to your topic, found those sources in the library, read through those sources, synthesized what you read, and put that together collaboratively with your teammates, ideally, into a 10-ish to 15-ish minute presentation, complete with source citations and a works cited page that had specific minimum criteria for numbers of sources from the library. Then, at the end of the semester, you'd face a similar project of library research on, in this case, a sacred architectural space from a living world religious tradition that is not Catholicism or Islam. And by sacred architectural space, I mean not a natural site, a site that has been built by humans. So yes, in a particular religious tradition, a certain mountain or river might be holy, but if humans haven't modified a site, it's not something we want to look at. And so you would pick from a long list of potential sacred architectural sites, repeat that style of library research, go back to that same process you did with a team, and create a 10 to 15 minute-ish presentation about your sacred architectural site full of library source citations. Well, flash forward to the end of the semester, mid-April, and few of us are near Boone, and none of us, even if we are in Boone, have access to Belk Library. So that necessitates some changes, and that's what I've done here with the revised April 2020 Sacred Space presentation. I have tried to simplify the presentation, shorten the workload of the presentation, and make this something that's doable given our circumstances. So what I'd like to do for this presentation, a screencast, is to quickly walk you through the new project guidelines, share with you a few resources I've added to As You Learn, and to show you the library resources that you can still consult for this project via the catalog, app search, and a pair of journal article databases. First, it still is an individual project. Second, it still uses library resources, but not to the extent the previous version of the project expected. And it still focuses on a sacred architectural space. But here's what this looks like. It is brief, 5 to 10 minutes, not 10 to 15. A lesson that introduces your selected sacred architectural space and provides sources for the further study of that space. So essentially, instead of researching a topic, finding sources at the library, reading those sources, going online, finding internet resources, reading those internet resources, creating a presentation in lieu of an essay, here we're going to do something a bit different. I'd like you to do some research into your topic using websites relevant to your topic. And then I'd like you to add to that research a guide to potential sources on the topic from our library catalog. You'll create a presentation, Google Slides, Keynote, PowerPoint, that gives a brief introduction to your selected sacred architectural space and shares some possible sources for the study of that site. I have an example in the guidelines here, which basically selects the site of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. I would first begin by picking Notre Dame as my selected sacred architectural site. I'd go online. I'd visit Wikipedia. I'd search for sites with some basic information about the cathedral, its history, its design, its architectural style, its use, and create no more than 5 slides walking my audience through that very basic information about the cathedral. I would then add slides recommending books and ebooks at Belk Library, either about the cathedral or Gothic architecture in general, books about Catholicism, a slide with several relevant academic journal articles, and finally a slide with several relevant websites. And I'd cite those books, journal articles, and websites in MLA style. And that's it. That's what I would do. This guide lays out a step-by-step process for you to follow. Step 1, select a site. I've provided you with a list here of sites that in the past few semesters students have successfully researched for this project. If you want to select a site that's not on this list, please get a hold of me as soon as possible with your proposed site, as I really don't want you going down a black hole or a dead end with the project that's due at the end of the semester. The sites on this list, running from Greek Orthodox to Buddhist to Jewish to Baha'i to Protestant, have all been researched and have plenty of material, relatively speaking, available for you. Also, special note, if you select either Rock Springs Camp Meeting in Lincoln, North Carolina, or the Ocean Grove Auditorium at Ocean Grove, New Jersey, an old Methodist resort, get in touch with me. I tend to write a bit about camp meeting revivalism and have sources and tips for you. Then, you're going to need to conduct some basic research on your selected site. Turn to the interwebs. Use an internet search. Try to find websites that share information about your selected site. You can begin with Wikipedia, but don't cite Wikipedia in your presentation. If you want to get a handle on your site, take a look at Wikipedia, look at the sections of the Wikipedia article about your selected site, if there is a Wikipedia article about your selected site, and that can give you some sense of direction for information available about your site. But when it comes down to putting together your presentation and citing websites relevant to your selected sacred architectural site, don't cite Wikipedia, please. When you head out on your internet search to find basic information about your selected site, there are some questions you should try to answer. Some of these questions may be answerable for a given site, and some of these questions there may not be an answer for. So be judicious and creative in which questions you address and how you address these questions. But you can see the questions here. And then step 3, library research. Now, because you cannot access the library, there are 2 parts of the library research step that I'm asking you to do based on the limited information you can find via our library catalog, via App Search. App Search will tell you a book's title, and if you click the title link in the search results, it will give you some description of the book. So based on that, we want to find 2 books or ebooks that, from that limited information, look like they would be good candidates from which to start your research on a selected sacred architectural space. If we were in the before time, these would be maybe the first 2 books or ebooks that you found in the catalog search and thought, I want to check those out first. I want to find them first and consult them first. So consider these 2 books or ebooks as your introductory texts. I'd recommend that you think about books that either are specifically on your selected sacred space or are at least on the religious tradition with which your space is associated. Much like our situation with researching ritual at the library, there are only a handful of instances where there are books in the ASU Belk Library collection specifically about your sacred site. For instance, you may find that if you pick Canterbury Cathedral or another UNESCO World Heritage Site, you'll find a book, if not on Canterbury Cathedral, then on Cathedrals of England. Similarly, if you pick Ajunta Caves in India, you may not find a book on Ajunta Caves, but you're likely to find books on early Buddhist architecture in India. Second, we want to find 2 books or ebooks that, from their title and catalog description, provide additional information about your selected space. These aren't the books you would prefer to start with, or would be good introductory books on the topic, but they're still books on the topic. They're there. Maybe these are books about Gothic cathedrals in general, or early Buddhist architecture in general, or the rituals and practices of the synagogue, or the role of temples in Buddhism, or even an essay in an edited volume of different essays by different authors, and that one essay talks about your site, or the role of synagogues in Judaism. Put those here in this second part of step 3. Then we want to find at least 2, and I know when I say at least, even in the before time, it really means you're going to find 2, but 2 academic journal articles that ideally discuss your selected sacred architectural space. Now, with this, it's a little different than the books that are coming up in the app search for the library catalog. For academic journal articles, we still have access to the databases where we can find full text copies of these articles. In this case, you should consult those databases, we'll talk about that in a moment, and do your best to read the articles that you find relevant to your selected sacred architectural space. Remember in class, if you were in class when we went over library sources and spent time looking at academic journal articles, and I mentioned that academic journal articles are not written for you, but they're written for other academics. However, you can get a sense of the article by focusing on the abstract, that brief paragraph, 250 words or so, that tells you what the article is about, if the article has an abstract, reading the introduction, and reading the conclusion. Do that and select the at least two academic journal articles that seem most helpful, most useful about your selected sacred architectural space. And then finally, perhaps the easiest part of step 3, is to find at least 4 relevant websites to your sacred architectural space. And again, here I mentioned you can consult Wikipedia for your initial steps in learning about your site, but please find sites other than Wikipedia to cite in this step. Then step 4 is your last step in the process. Step 4 is putting together the presentation. Once you've found through your internet searching enough basic information about your selected sacred architectural site to answer all those questions, or as many as relevant of those questions in step 2, and you found the library sources in step 3, then your next task is to put together a presentation, Google Slides, Keynote, PowerPoint. Begin your presentation with slides addressing those basic questions about your site, followed by slides listing your sources that you found in step 3. Use images, liven up the presentation a bit, and any images that you find on the internet of your selected sacred architectural site, please include the web URL, the address of that image, specifically of that image. So if you find an image on a website, discoveringbuddhism.org, don't list www.discoveringbuddhism.org as the URL source. No, you need the specific URL of the image from discoveringbuddhism.org. Finally, all sources, books, ebooks, journal articles, and websites should be cited in MLA style. I would prefer Chicago, but we never got to do that Chicago workshop, and so we are stuck with MLA. Save and upload your presentation to the Dropbox on As You Learn by 11:59 p.m. on May 7th. And if you are doing your presentation in Google Slides, make sure that you share or grant access to me by May 7th to my email address, averyquins@appstate.edu. Total points, 50. So it's a big chunk. So please give it time, please give it consideration. And as I said earlier, if you run into questions or concerns about it, send me an email. Visit me anytime, 9 a.m. to noon, Google Hangouts, hangouts.google.com. Click New Conversation and use my email address, averyquins@appstate.edu, to send me a chat request. The rest of the project guide includes a step-by-step process for navigating the Belk Library website to find JSTOR and ATLA databases. These are the two primary database search engines I recommend you use to find those academic journal articles if you don't have much luck finding those academic journal articles through App Search. So to get to either JSTOR or ATLA from the main library.appstate.edu site, click Find Resources, and then either databases over here or the visual image of databases here. And then the database page breaks up how to find databases by type, by name, or by subject. I'll show you how to do it by name. So for ATLA, we go to A, and then we have to scroll down. Everything's alphabetical. And there are 3 ATLA entries. ATLA Historical Monographs Collection Series 1, Series 2. You don't need to worry about those. You want ATLA Religion. You'll need to sign in with your AppState ID and password to connect to the EBSCOhost database. But once you're connected, you can simply search here. You can see Notre Dame Cathedral comes up in the suggested search terms. And there are 94 articles, not all of which have the PDF immediately available, but quite a few do. Now back on this page, if we wanted JSTOR, we could click by name to the J's, which there's only 2 databases beginning with J, so it makes it a little easier. Click JSTOR, and we could immediately run our search on Notre Dame Cathedral, and then click search. Or, just so you know, you can scroll down and limit the topical areas of journals in your search. So for instance, if I'm searching for Notre Dame Cathedral, I might want to limit my search to architecture and architectural history, art and art history, and maybe scroll down to religion and search that way. So I click that search in JSTOR for Notre Dame Cathedral, and here are my search results. And for all of the search results I get, it gives me review articles, academic articles, and books. We want academic journal article. And then we just search through. And look, the Hemicycle of Notre Dame of Paris, Gothic Design and Geometrical Knowledge in the 12th Century. That looks interesting. Download PDF. I agree. And after a moment of waiting, there's the PDF. The nice thing about JSTOR is that almost everything that comes up in the search results, unlike App Search, actually has the PDF, the full text of the article available to you. So finally, if we take a look at As You Learn and scroll down the page to the section on the Sacred Space presentation, we can see the Sacred Space Final Presentation Guidelines, links to ATLA and links to JSTOR, and then a Dropbox for you to upload your finished presentation by May 7th. If you have any questions or concerns, send me an email. Visit hangouts.google.com Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon, and chat away at me about the project. So that's all. See you next time.